Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be giving you 8 pointer tips for survival in career mode. Now, as you may know, career mode is a whole different beast, and oftentimes everything goes wrong. So there are certain elements and things you can do to your creations to mitigate disaster and hopefully help you survive and thrive in career mode. Now, this actually comes from a comment that came on one of my videos and a request, and I kind of expanded on this list and worked through items that I implemented in my own creations as I was developing them for you to use in your own games. The first tip is to make a lot of small watertight compartments. Now, what you can do in your hull is just split up the areas and give yourself a multitude of spaces. Now, in this ship particularly, we got the front space, and then we got kind of the middle space here, and then we have the ballast tanks on either side, back here and here. But overall, you'll see that there are several different compartments even in the front. Now, this one is quite large, and if it flooded with water, it would probably be pretty bad for the boat, but it would not be enough to sink it. I really took this to heart in my latest build that is actually currently in progress, so these are a bit of behind the scenes, but if you see here, take a look at those compartments. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you will want compartments, because what will happen is if you crash in the front here, several of them will be compromised. Now, because this boat is so wide, I do have some side compartments, and if these flooded here, it would be bad, but it wouldn't be detrimental enough to sink the boat. Now, if these two flooded here, like this and this, well, that would actually be awful, and the boat would probably come over. So you really don't want to split your compartments side to side unless you have a lot of redundant components and compartments, and that will prevent, in essence, mass flooding. But for me, at a minimum, I always make a very forward, small compartment that will allow flooding in case you kind of bottom out, hit something here. Now, in this particular vessel, I did not make a large forward compartment here, which actually would have been quite a wise idea, like something like this, just to block off this very front space that is very susceptible to damage here, and then have the rest of the hull be within this other large area. So, like I said, just a summary, breaking it up into multiple smaller compartments, particularly in the front, but also the back and side work, because if you do end up having some other collision or damage, or the animals get you, the creatures in the game, then at least you will have some more time. Now, the boat may sink, but at least it'll sink slower. You could potentially make it to the base and respawn the boat. Keep in mind, for a truly repairable boat, you will have access hatches. So in this case, this hatch opens and you can access the pumps and stuff, but I did actually make a physics flutter in here to prevent you from entering it, so you can just open the hatch and kind of see. To make a truly repairable boat, you will be able to enter these spaces, but what I do is I always put underwater weld repair equipment, and I put pumps in here. Now, we'll get to the pumps part later, but point is, you can scour the exterior hull of the vessel and repair them. So if you have multiple compartments, you're going to slow the time that it takes to sink and hopefully give you enough time to repair the vessel itself. Which brings me to my second point, which is pumps. Put pumps in every major area. Pumps, pumps, pumps. You will want to be able to pump out water that enters your boat unannounced. When you don't want to have water in your vessel, well, pumps. Automatic pumps, bilge pumps, not automatic, on a button, whatever. The point is the ability to pump out as much water as fast as possible. Backup pumps as well on separate circuits may be helpful, but I don't tend to do that. I just put everything on one emergency circuit, and I make them turn on automatically with a fluid sensor. So when you have multiple pumps, you can actually have the boat stop flooding as fast or slow down the flooding, giving you enough time to repair the boat or as much time upright to potentially escape or get yourself to some place where you can repair it. You'll also want pumps in your inaccessible areas, such as the front compartment, rear compartment, and stuff like that. But you'll also want pumps that are actually pumping your indoor compartments as well, because what if you leave this door open, or if you get damage on this portion of the ship? Well, you gotta have that water escape, and you definitely don't want your interior flooding. Item number 3 is automate your emergency systems. Now, as I mentioned, you could have your pumps on a button, but I highly recommend having it automated. So in this case, I actually even have automated water hatches, kind of like the Titanic, except hopefully doesn't sink, that close automatically if water is detected. And the point of this is that it'll actually separate any compartments of water. So if it's in the staircase, it'll prevent it from flooding the engine room. If it's in the engine room hallway, it'll prevent it from flooding the stairs and going into the lounge area. So all of them are separated out with these doors, but that's only one of the type of system. In addition to that, every single area has little vents and ports that will pump out any water that you don't want to be in the system. So you'll notice that all of my common areas have ports. I think behind here somewhere, yeah, there it is. So every area has ports, and for extra bonus points, I actually put them inside some of these rooms, so they'll actually prevent the rooms from flooding. And note how they're kind of in the front of the vessel. Well, if there's a collision here in the front where these rooms are and they're flooding, they won't enter into the hallway. All automatic, you don't do anything, you just let it work, and by letting it work, it will buy you extra time. Now, sensors themselves could be made redundant. I don't do that, but if they do get damaged, they will misfunction, and same with the pumps, you can make them redundant, all that good stuff. But the point is, just automatic systems where you don't have to have as much input allow you to put more automatic systems that will save the day. Emergency power is your friend. It is absolutely your lifeline to preventing the boat from sinking quickly. So you will want to have spare generators that maybe kick on automatically. You'll want to think about having separated circuits, including backup power and backup generator power. So you have multiple systems. All of these are going to power your pumps. They're going to power your watertight doors, possibly power your engines, and prevent your engines from dying out, which could ultimately push your ship to get to land or get somewhere safer. Oftentimes, as you're sinking, giving yourself a little bit of extra throttle actually prevents a lot of water from coming in. It'll just allow the boat to keep going, either getting you out of harm's way, getting you closer to land, or just keeping the thing upright. A lot of times I've actually pushed on quite far with just keeping the boat going full power. It keeps the batteries charged, keeps the power going, keeps the generators on, keeps the pumps on, and all that good stuff. So power is your lifeline. You will want to have backup batteries at the minimum, or backup systems altogether. Another thing I do is actually have these red lights that I call my emergency lights, and they're on a separate circuit. They're tied directly to the battery, so there's nothing else other than them and the battery on that circuit, and they will just stay on even if the rest of the lights die out. So you can have the generators go out with all that. These ones are going to stay on until the very last drop of power is coming out of that battery. It'll give you light, it'll give you a place to go. You'll be able to see a bit clearer and hopefully escape disaster. Well, speaking of disaster, what about emergency radios and beacons? Now, this may not necessarily be something that will get you out of water if you're playing by yourself alone in career mode, but if you are playing multiplayer, this may be a make or break situation that can ultimately save you. But having a good amount of radio systems, whether part of microcontrollers or whether just having an actual radio that you can pick up and hold and transmit. That may help you for sure, and it'll just allow people to come to you. Now, on that note, having a full-on multitude of emergency systems, such as what you see on the top of my boat here, that actually has kind of a strobe. So I've put that on the top. It lets people find you much easier. And also having flares. So the multitude of systems that you can put on your vessels to kind of give you the ability to be found, be seen, that may help you in instances of playing online, but also if you are just role-playing or playing by yourself, flares like this can give you illumination even if the rest of the lights are out in your vessel. Having radio systems may not necessarily help, but having spare flashlights close to doorways and flares and all kinds of stuff, that will help you definitely just be able to find your way out and hopefully be seen, or just make it so you can actually see what's going on as you're trying to escape. In my larger vessels, I actually do have fire suppression systems. Now, if you have a fire suppression system built into your vessel that uses the nozzles, that is an awesome thing to have, and it will actually spray water on your engines, on the fire, and hopefully put it out. Case in point, if you just turn this on and then turn that on, see how that's working. But I also do have a system where I could turn off sprinkler mode and press R. It'll actually allow me to spray, and I could go to any component of the boat from that engine room and spray wherever the fire may be. And I can see the door opened up, so I actually have to go and hold those while I pass through. So those are my watertight doors that I showed you earlier. But in essence, it allows you to spray, or it allows the actual spraying of the system with the nozzles. So whichever case you put, look at that, I can't even see anything. But whichever case you put, you will be able to extinguish your fire, hopefully. Now, the ultimate other option is just putting a fire extinguisher. If you don't have an automated system, if you don't have a sprinkler or a hose, well, at least just a regular old fire extinguisher can definitely help, and some fire gear. So fancy equipment or just basic equipment, but having fire suppression system is ultimately important for putting out fires aboard ships. One of my favorite things to do if you have enough space, if you're having a bigger build, is to put emergency escape vehicles. Now, they don't have to be necessarily specifically emergency escape vehicles, but definitely having extra vehicles, a RIB, a helicopter, a submarine, whatever the case may be, attached to your ship that can get you some extra distance if there is an emergency and a need to abandon ship. Now, of course, the preferred task and plan of action is to not abandon the ship, but if you have to, those will get you the distance. Now, you will want to put Arctic gear nearby or inside these extra vehicles if you have them. What I always do, always, is in any of my builds, I tend to have kind of emergency escape door, or more like kind of little like lobby area that has some thermal gear, some equipment. I don't really overdo the amount of gear, I just kind of put them on the shelves. But then inside my cabins, pretty much all of them, you will find either under the bed or around the bed thermal gear. So they're going to get you, if you need abandoned ship, well, you can dive out and at least survive. Now, of course, in this case, we're not in the Arctic, but if you were, that could be the difference between life and death. And even if space isn't really a consideration, you probably still could make it work, even with a very small build, if you have the right supporting creation, that is. So in the case of something like this, even this tiny little ribbed boat can still be used for emergencies. Now, something small like this doesn't have as big a tank of gas, and of course isn't as good as a helicopter, but at least it'll keep you afloat. Of course, the best emergency vehicle is a proper lifeboat, something that is enclosed, something that has all that stuff I talked about already there. It has an emergency beacon, it has flares, it has all kinds of stuff. And of course, as you know, that's what people use in real life to get off in a sinking ship. So a proper escape boat is a great idea. I actually remember on my first build, before I even knew how to put a second boat on the creation itself, I had the main engine system, and then I had a secondary engine system, believe it or not. Now, I've never once again made a redundant engine system. You could see the little engine here, but that is an option too. You in essence have two boats in one. I could definitely think of a lot of better ways than putting two separate engine systems with two separate propellers, but something like that, or having emergency electric power or whatever, may get you that extra distance that you need to go. And last but not least, what I always do is plan for the escape. So ask yourself, what happens if the boat is listing 45 degrees and about to flip over? Which way will you go? Do you have enough access hatches? Do you have hatches potentially on the ceiling? Are you able to swim out? If you wait long enough and the boat actually starts to submerge, where can you go? What if you're in the lowest compartment and unable to get yourself up? So all those things may help you for an eventual disaster. You see here I have a side door and a main door to get out of the engine room if you're trapped in there. Of course, the lab does have an actual airlock door, which you're just stuck in until they equalize. It would have probably been smart to put an emergency release that you just like turn and the door comes open no matter what. But the point is, all these things are thought out to prevent mass disaster in the face of an emergency. Now inside the engine room, like I have the fire suppression system, and I have the emergency power. This one doesn't have a hose, but it does have a fire extinguisher. It does have manual override, so you can still have your engine power and have generator electricity, all that good stuff. So I tend to place a combination of these elements in my own creations, therefore giving you potentially and hopefully the best chance of survival in any type of circumstances. So again, just a final safety inspection, if you will, safety check of going around and testing the various systems, the lights, the ability to escape, clear emergency access, all that good stuff can potentially help you in the face of an emergency. Now again, career mode is unforgiving, so if you are caught while there's a disaster, you may be out of luck. So you'll definitely want to pair up on a bunch of the emergency systems that I mentioned, and hopefully, well, hope for the best, expect the worst or plan for the worst, and keep on trucking. So there you have it, 8 tips on how to survive in career mode. Now, career mode, you may not have such extravagant creations, but if you pair up on some of these emergency ideas, even in a smaller build, they can help you survive. So hopefully you found this interesting. If you did, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, shoot a comment down below what your favorite emergency system is. And as always, I do give a huge thank you and shout out to all of my supporters, all of my YouTube members and Discord server boosters. They keep the lights on and they get rewarded. They get early access to things, they get beta testing, they get creations, they get videos. So take a look at those perks if you are interested. And I do thank you even if you are not a supporter, because just by watching this, you in essence are a supporter. So thank you. Until next time, happy Stormworksing, everyone.